In a way, the ideas for blood came before making the udder, and the udder was a kind of catalyst to be able to enable me to experiment with some of the ideas that later became blood. And these were centred around the idea of gender being a non-specific thing. So the udder being attached to a female cow, but declaring itself chaste, meant that there was this contradiction in terms where I was forcing the udder to be both phallic, female, thumb, nose, and sort of this meandering, shape-shifting object that belonged to neither and both at the same time. So that actually came from my long-standing research into sworn virgins, which became the premise of the idea for blood. I don't like calling them sworn virgins because they're actually called bordonesha, which is the proper and correct name for women who live as men, and to be a man means to be fair, honest, correct, and there's this kind of cultural correctness that is associated with the gender of the man. So this is different to sort of retaining virginity, which I didn't realise at the time. The young girl is not an interest for me, weirdly, even though she's the core of both films. Her being a virgin is important because then we start thinking, okay, well, this is a sworn virgin and this is a man. What about the virgin, the sort of archetypal, stereotypical virgin that we see in storybooks? And she is that angelic. So it's almost like I'm kind of drumming that home, that there's a problem with these archetypes. There's a problem with kind of thinking about virgins as the angelic blonde Aryan figure. And so she's in the film because of that, because I kind of want to kind of draw out these varying forms of virginity. One is the classic kind of thing that we've seen before 1,000 times, and the other is hopefully something different. The nose in history is always thought of as a castrated phallus or something within psychoanalysis. You think of the nose as an object, as a protrusion, as a thing, and not as a lack and not as an absence. And so I suppose I'm trying to kind of equalize something, or trying to not overly determine these things as gender specific. So trying to have sort of pan-gender across everything. And so like the nose is female and male again, they're these little girls, but they're kind of like these slug-shaped leeches, turbinate bones, phallus, like everything. I mean, it's kind of like this swarm of everything, where they're just not allowed to settle for one, ever. So I guess that's what interests me about the nose, the udder, and the inherent lie that it is. It's never one thing with me, it's always that in tandem with something. So the mythological dimensions of blood are seen in conjunction with a more sort of medicalised view of blood, where blood is a material, a fluid, a substance, not attached to any kind of symbolism or anything larger than the sum of its parts. Whereas blood in, say for example, Albania contains with it a potency that I've never ever seen before, and I can only liken it to a type of currency. It's something to do with the way that there's this pact kind of symbolism where you get blood can only be wiped out with blood, eye for an eye. You kill my brother, I kill yours, but only a man can be killed because a woman isn't worth the bullet. I'm cynical as much as I'm interested in it, and I just wanted to kind of have that kind of totally stark opposition between substance and meaning, substance and symbolism. Being a winner of the award has completely transformed my way of working. It's kind of inevitable that any artist that had got it, seeing as it's for people in the first stages of their career, you know, it grows in ambition, scale, work with more people, have money for the first time in my life, making work, which is a luxury. And not to say that it gets easier at all. It's not easier, it's harder, but in a kind of such a dynamic and interesting way that I could never have predicted. I guess it's become more team-based, less insular, less isolating, kind of much more collaborative, much more investigative and outward-facing. And so the people that I work with become, you know, huge parts of the film. It's not just me directing stuff. It's felt on set that this is a kind of organism in its own right. The way that this thing is coming together, and it's magical. It's really, that's what's changed. Really, is the kind of and how I want to see that continue. Really.